All right, we're back. Welcome aboard. This is Crucible Tarot. We're going to be doing our monthly Tarocchi Mundi reading, which Tarocchi Mundi. I've chosen that name because it means kind of like mundane tarot, or tarot that deals with worldly affairs. And so I think it's a good way for us to test empirically how accurate tarot can be, even if it's just for entertainment at this point. Our curious minds also do want to kind of know how well we can predict the future, especially as it relates to the material world. So we're going to be talking today about some things that have been taking place in the news quite a bit, and a lot of that deals with the US economy. I've been following some of the developments on some of my other channels, one of my other channels actually, and covering a little bit of the news that's taking place regarding the kind of I'll try not to use any horrible words right now, but the chaos that is taking place in the US economy. Of course, the UK is not that much better. We seem to be spending more on welfare than we have been on actual things that people need or, to create some economic prosperity. But in the States, it's gotten really bad. So as we know that the US has crossed the $40 trillion debt mark, that was due largely in part to the war in Iran. It's also taken place due to the attempted bailout of the Japanese yen, which has created disastrous results because it hasn't actually solved the problem. It's only temporarily eased it. So it looks like there's some things on the horizon that we need to be mindful of. And I've shuffled the cards, but there's a lot of cards on this. I'm going to take my time and I'm going to try to explain in a very succinct way where I can explain bit by bit what's taking place and how I've laid these cards out. So as we get into this, if you like what you see here, please be sure to give a like, share, subscribe, ding the notification bell so that you don't miss any updates from future postings. And furthermore, feel free to support the channel in the best way that you see fit. We're going to go to the first part. So we're doing this over a period of a few years. So it's going to be 2026 to 2028. And we're going to focus primarily on what's taking place for 2026. Now, we've firstly gotten these two cards. What's coming up recently, or what's coming up soon, I would assume is this. Or if we want to look at it, this is more so the recent past. Recent past, we've had a bit of a failure. Failure to launch, failure for things to actually demonstrate the way they have. It's a loss of power. Six of Wands normally comes after the Five of Wands, where you have fought to achieve something. Well, the United States did not achieve its goals. Of course, we know what's taken place in the Strait of Hormuz. But currently we have a bit of a mad king, or at least the United States has a bit of a mad king telling the world that it has control of the Strait of Hormuz, it wants to rename it and all this other shit, and it's just not true. The reality of the matter is the Six of Wands in the reverse shows a complete failure to achieve an objective that had been set out and laid out. A lot of this is due to the fact you have Temperance in the reverse. Temperance in the reverse can talk about mental illness, which I'm not going to judge US President Donald Trump on that, but I will just say that if we are speaking about mental illness, this would be the card to explain it, especially when it's in the reverse. It's an imbalance of sorts. An imbalance in the relationship between yourself and someone else, or an internal imbalance that talks about hastiness, a lack of foresight, a lack of planning or thinking, because this is the Sagittarius card. Temperance is related to Jupiter, which is Sagittarius. And more so, when people who are Sagittarians, myself, I'm a Sagittarius ascendant, you normally are an archer and you're shooting your arrow so that you can hit a specific target. That means the energy that you are focusing on is meant to reach a specific destination and goal. Well, the United States has achieved the opposite result. They were chaotic, they're all over the place, they're lying, their ego has inflated. Six of Wands in the reverse is about a bruised ego, especially. And everything there was for theater. So in the current moment, we have the Fool in the reverse. And the Fool in the reverse tells us a lot about the fact that the global market now understands what the situation really is for the United States, and they are planning accordingly. With the Fool in the reverse, it tells us about a global order where people are no longer investing or taking risk on the United States. We saw this happen at the start of both conflicts. One, the first one in June 2025, and then in February 2028. No, sorry, February this year, on February 28th. And what we saw is that none of the European powers really got involved in the matter. So it was just the United States and Israel, and occasionally some of the, Gulf vassals. This is now, because this conflict is nearing its 6-month mark. It was supposed to take 6 days, according to the United States. But now it's 6 months. It has greatly overstretched itself. And now when it comes to US bond markets, especially in Japan, we've had a lot of the Japanese government stating that they needed to sell US bonds so that they could help prop up the Japanese yen, which has experienced a high degree of inflation. And that's not something that that's not something that the US wants, because it doesn't want Japan to get rid of its bonds. But additionally, it's not what Japan wants, because we see that Japan cannot afford to have a very, inflated Japanese yen, because it's always typically had a strong one to support its domestic market. Now, that said, we're looking at a case in a situation where Japan, well, not just Japan, but generally speaking, the global consensus is that the US is a very risky alliance and asset. There has been too much instability since this president came into power, and subsequent presidents, because we're looking at a long-term timeline. It's Biden, that's President Trump, we could even associate it with Barack Obama, definitely. And just generally speaking, the alliance with the United States, especially on the economic side, has been very, very tumultuous. We have lots of issues, lots of flashpoints right now, where the United States has created an intense amount of instability where people do not want to get involved. This includes the AI data centers around the world, creating a shortage of components, creating instability in the job market, and not giving a return on investment. US bond yields are increasing. So what that tells us is that the rest of the world may start selling off their bonds in order to prop up their own currencies. I know that the United States recently, they sold a lot of their European Union euros, and they did that to buy back some of the, to sell for Japanese yen and to prop up the Japanese yen. This angered European leaders recently, and that's not going to go very well. So you may see the European Union become more reticent to help out the United States or to get involved in it. The Ace of Swords in this position tells us quite a bit about that. It's the realization, the point in the moment of realization, and the point where a lot of global leaders are just not going to be able to tolerate this anymore. And I'm speaking after I've shuffled this card for about 10 minutes and going through it and trying to just make sure like I get the right cards. Not necessarily I get the right cards to come out, but I get the layout, and that I'm detaching myself from the reading as I lay the cards out. What we have in the near future, and this is something that we should keep in mind. We have Death card. We all know what death means. This is clarified by the Five of Cups. Very, very soon, there's going to be a period in the United States where there's an economic catastrophe, which is going to lead to the end of the US empire. And I say that with all due respect. There's going to be a lot of disappointment. I think a lot of Americans are going to be very disappointed as what takes place when their currency is debased to the point where it's no longer functional. With the death, this is the cessation of all of the things that no longer serves the United States. And it's not to say that the US is going to just collapse and devolve into anarchy. But this is the end of an era in which the United States felt that it needed to assert itself on the global stage to a point where it was at the detriment of everyone else around the world. And we are seeing that now in real time. And in the near future, it's going to get worse. So those are the three cards for the past, present, and future. Now we're going to move into the next set of cards, which are going to talk about the months leading up to the end of 2026. So shuffling the cards, what I found, the first card was the Seven of Swords. This is in September. This is clarified by another seven, the Seven of Wands. So we have two sevens. Sevens normally talk about the dissolution of things, but it also talks about deception and doing things in a roundabout way. We're going to see a lot, and I mean a lot, of deception coming from the United States because the situation is not the way that the people are reporting it in the mainstream media. And furthermore, what it tells us about is a situation where the United States is going to say, this is fine. And I get that image in my head. The little dog having coffee, sipping his little coffees. It's like, this is fine. And the world around it is burning, like the entire house is on fire. So with these two sevens here, these are two cards of wands, and these are two cards of, this is a card of wands and a card of swords. Swords deal with the intellect, communication, and the wands are dealing with actions. There's going to be a lot of deceptive actions, a lot of putting out fires, to say the least. There's going to be a sincere amount of pushback against the United States over this period next month. And a lot of people are not going to be happy with the way that things have been going in the States, and that has jeopardized the entire world's, financial security. So people not only are going to dislike the lies and the deception that the US tells people, but other countries are going to be working in stealth to circumvent the chaos that is about to impend in October. So what we're looking at now, in September, again, there's going to be a lot of nonsense, a lot of bullshit, to kind of do damage control as to the reality of the matter, whereas the Strait of Hormuz is not open. People are selling US bonds. Companies may be buying gold and silver, or organizations may be buying gold and silver because more central banks are buying those. And gold, if I'm not mistaken, recently surpassed US bonds as far as secure assets in a lot of the banking institutions around the world. So more central banks are going towards gold and silver, and they're dropping US bonds in the process. This is very, very bad for the United States as far as its bond yields are going to go, which I think they're currently around 5.18%, something around that. So we go into the next phase where in October we have the Three of Pentacles in the reverse. This is clarified by the Empress in the reverse. This is a very clear-cut explanation that what we have a situation in where the cooperative spirit between the United States and other countries around begins to fall apart. And it begins to fall apart because institutions no longer want to work with the US, and furthermore, the leadership within the United States begins to crumble. So the Three of Pentacles in the reverse is no one's working together, no one's cooperating. There's difficulty being able to put plans in action or putting them together so that they can rectify the situation. Empress in the reverse is all about a lack of value, things being, things falling apart. Additionally, projects that have been, attempted to, that they have attempted to bring into light have officially stopped. They've ceased. The Empress is about growing things. So you have 2 3s here as well. So the first set you had 2 7s. The Empress, the card number is 3. It's in the Major Arcana. And then you have a 3 of Pentacles. Both of them are related to Taurus. So this deals with the finances as well. You're going to see a complete deterioration in the US financial system. The currency is going to become unstable. The bond market is going to collapse. Things are going to get really rough for those people who are investors. You will see investors scrambling to try to get different stocks, get different kinds of things. People will become less likely to invest in the artificial intelligence industry, which is taking a predominance in the United States, where they have created this bloated kind of bubble, tech bubble, if you want to call it that, which is not giving a return on investment. The Empress, it's stillborn. But even more so, when you look at that, you think about the one thing I was thinking about, this popped into my head, was that, how there are Chinese models that are coming out that charge a fraction for the same quality or near like quality, nearly fungible quality for those AI models that are present in the States. A lot of that is due to the fact that the Chinese trained their AI models on the models built in the United States, which is clever of them. And people will just go to those types instead of investing in American AI, platforms. So things are going to fall apart in October. November, we have the Five of Swords in the reverse. This is someone giving up the fight. And there are a multitude of reasons as to why that's the case. We have 3 4 cards that are pulled out. There's a 5 of Swords in the reverse, but we have a 4 of Wands. This is a new phase in the United States. This is a new phase marked by a 4 of Cups in the reverse. This is a missed opportunity. And then you have the 4 of Swords in the reverse. This is a very tense moment where things become quite, how should I say? There's a lot of anxiety that's going to take place for a lot of people. It's going to be very unstable, politically probably unstable. There's going to be a missed opportunity. Sometimes that means someone's getting ousted. It's possible that the people will celebrate the loss of certain leaderships within the United States and elsewhere. And a lot of this is due to the fact that things have kind of hit a cumulative head. In the month of December, we do know that the primaries are taking place in November, just to be clear. Well, not the primaries, but the midterms. And with the midterms, of course, that's going to determine who controls, Congress during that period. And additionally, there are other elections. There's an election cycle in Israel that's taking place in October. And then you have the election cycle in November for the United States and other countries. So we're moving into December. We have the 8 of Wands. And then we have the Queen of Pentacles in the reverse. So that's where the collapse happens. Everything comes teetering down. 8 of Wands is very, very quick. It can be communication of such. But with the Queen of Pentacles in the reverse, it's usually talking about someone who has tried to nurture an economic project and it has just collapsed. It's like mini Empress energy in quite a bit of ways. So the Queen of Pentacles, she nurtures her value, her worth. That is all coming crashing down by December. So going into this, I asked a few questions to the cards, and I asked them, is there going to be a total severe financial collapse? No, but there is going to be a huge period of stagnation for the United States. So I'm looking more like into 2008 levels, possibly even 1980s levels. Five of Wands in the reverse, the fire is just going to get put out, and they're going to do everything they can to manage the chaos that comes or that ensues after that period. The other question I asked is, what was it? We have the issue of whether or not U.S. Donald Trump is going to be impeached. He said in a statement recently that he was going to be impeached if he didn't win the primaries. We have the Seven of Pentacles in the reverse. Now, I can take this two ways. It's possible that they won't impeach him, but he may defer responsibility to other people around. So it may be that he finds out it's not worth it. What is actually going to happen for Donald Trump, and don't shoot the messenger when I say, well, I probably shouldn't use that word either. Let's try to rephrase that. What's going to happen with Donald Trump's administration, specifically Donald Trump himself? We have the Three of Swords, and then we have the Ten of Wands in the reverse. Three of Swords is a separation. It can be a painful situation as well. But I see this as a separation to end the burden. Quite possibly he could get ousted, or at an even greater sense, he may lose so much control in the November midterms that it will be difficult for him to carry out anything with his policies, his ideas, or anything like that. People are just going to vote for the other side and carry on with their lives. So that's what I see taking place for the Trump administration. Now, we go into the next phase. Is there going to be an issue with is there going to be an issue with the U.S. economy? And the Ten of Pentacles came in the upright, and it said, yes, there is. It's going to be about the legacy that it leaves. Now, I'm not saying that things could improve in another way, but that Ten of Pentacles there, I normally did it to clarify upright yes, reverse no. But in this, I can kind of see that there's going to be a shift in the dynamics that take place in the global economy. So there may be other players that come out that can tell us a little bit more about this. What is the Ten of Pentacles about? Okay, so Nine of Swords. This is going to be a stressful period, dealing with long-term viability. So that's what I pulled here. And that insinuates to me that the long-term financial security of the United States is in peril. Now, what is going to be the outcome of all of this? The outcome of the entire situation under the Trump administration, Sun in the reverse. Clarified by the King of Swords in the reverse. Then we have not the Time Machine. Well, it's called Time Machine here, but this is the Wheel of Fortune. And then you have Comet, which is the Star. The first two cards, Sun in the reverse, King of Swords in the reverse. This is a very unhappy time for what appears to be. I'm not really on the political spectrum of the United States. Just let's get this clear. What it tells me, Sun in the reverse, King of Swords in the reverse. This is a mad king that experiences his downfall. Things become murky, cloudy, they're not clear, but additionally, there's a lot of displeasure, a lot of unhappiness. King of Swords in the reverse. He's not going to like what takes place by the end of this year, or even especially by the end of this entire cycle that's playing out right now. Because the cycle that we have here, there will be hope after this period. So it's not to say that the US is completely lost. Time Machine, which is Wheel of Fortune, Comet, which is the this is the Star card. Things will have a quick turnaround in the world, in the global economy, and things will begin to pick up, and life will go on. So it's a good thing. So it's good that we have that. It's quite possible that people will celebrate the changes that are going to take place, especially if there's a new political leadership that takes place in the world where they can alleviate the crises that have come out of this financial collapse. Now, sorry, I'm getting a bit winded right now because it's very exhausting to read these cards, especially with the amount that are on this desk here, this type. In 2027, there's going to be a huge period of uncertainty. It's a lot of things that people need to consider, a lot of things that people need to revise as far as the economics goes. Clarify the moon in reverse. Clarify the moon in reverse again. Okay. So we have the Nine of Cups. See if I can get that right. Nine of Cups and the Eight of Pentacles in the reverse. 2027 is going to be a year of a reordering and a restructuring of the global markets. What it may do is it talks about maybe using a bit more automation because we have that Eight of Pentacles in the reverse. It could also, if it's Nine of Cups and Eight of Pentacles in the reverse, could talk about leadership that's a bit smug and arrogant. Well, I've got my money, I can just fuck off to the islands while everybody else suffers about it. However, because the moon is in the reverse here, it's going to be revealed. It's normally a period in time in which things are revealed. I think that yeah. Okay, that's what it is. It's going to be revealed to the public that, and I'm getting the phrase paper tiger. You have a country that feels like it's abundant all by itself. It can do anything it wants and so on and so on. But in the real world, it's kind of a loss of status, a massive loss of status. In 2028, we have these cards here. We have the Knight of Cups. And as far as what's going to take place with the United States, this is clarified by the Hangman and the Ace of Wands in the reverse. So this could be taken one of two ways. Either A, there's a new kind of movement towards a better institutional governance in which people are moving towards things that are more emotionally fulfilling rather than all of the chaos that had been created under this old economic order. And a lot of this is going to be due to a period of total stagnation and the United States being forced to sit in an energy where it has to rethink its strategy across the world stage. Because the thing that has taken place with that Ace of Wands in the reverse, there has been a complete and utter failure to launch, especially when it comes to the US empire. And it's going to be important that we get into a period where we are, number one, not acting hasty anymore. That's Knight of Swords in the reverse. And B, we're coming out of this period of mental stagnation and mental confusion about what we should prioritize or what the American people should prioritize as a whole when they spend their resources, their time, their energy doing things, building their economies, growing their country, and working towards prosperity. So last but not least, the Lenormand card that comes out here are the stars. When things are written in the stars, it is fated that they take place. So that's precisely what this is telling us about this whole situation. The entire situation taking place is fated, and it's only a matter of time. These things were written out long before the contracts of the universe had been signed by all of the players who were going to take part in them. And I think with this whole situation with the United States, there are good things about the United States. The people there can be lovely. The people there can be bastards, but it's like that in every country. There are just, in some countries, more bastards than in others. And you think of that what you will. Whoever has actually visited the States, who's met them, they're lovely people around, very, very nice. They're also a bunch of miscreants. It's the same even here in the UK. And generally speaking, this is not for me to say, like, I hope the Americans get what they deserve and things like that, but we're going to see the United States go through its dark night of the soul, its Negredo phase. It is going to go through an alchemical process where everything about the United States that has been rotting at the core of the country will get stripped away, and it will become vulnerable. That's why we have that star card and the time machine. Things are going to move into a direction where quickly the universe is going to strip the United States of everything, and it's going to be left vulnerable so that it can find what it truly, truly means to be a sovereign nation. Because in the star card, it's being guided by the North Star. It's got 1 foot in the water, 1 foot in the on the earth, with the 5 water streams coming out from the foot. So that generally tells us, like with the traditional Rider-Waite picture of it, it tells us that the US will be forced to finally rule and govern itself in a way that makes sense. In a way that makes sense, and that is authentic. When you live as an inauthentic entity, whether that's a country, a person, or anything like that, the lies will begin to surface, and then the cracks will begin to show. And you don't want to be in this kind of energy. That is a horrible energy to be in. And it's about time that things do change. And they will have to change, because you can only do things for so long before the universe pushes you over the edge, and then you have no choice but to get up and actually take control of your future. So I'm wishing everyone the best of luck on this. We're in for rough times. And this isn't just in the US, this is in the UK as well, because I have explained in a previous Tarocchi Mundi, which was the one about Andy Burnham, the Prime Minister currently in the United Kingdom. We've got until 2029 to sort that out, and hopefully we will be able to manage it in a way that allows for us to grow and evolve as a country ourselves, and to get rid of to root out all of the mess and the chaos that has been inflicted upon the country over the last 14 years of leadership, 20 years of leadership, if you want to say, even going back to 97 under the Blair administration. There's been a lot of stuff that has led to a cumulative point of, collapse in both countries. Even when I was living in the States, I remember the days in which it was great under the Clintons because the economy was being inflated to a degree, and, times were a bit more boisterous. He was kind of like seen as the Obama of his time. And then they got involved in the wars and all of the chaos erupted. And then by the time you know it, US is getting in debt. And the debt just keeps increasing. It goes to 8 trillion, then it goes to 16 trillion, then it goes to 32 trillion, then it goes to, now it's at 40 trillion US dollars. And so I just kind of sit back and look at it, in retrospect, just as kind of like we saw this coming in 2008. And we are now entering 2028, which was the last set of cards that I gave you. It's a matter of 20 years to completely gut the economy. And this isn't just something you can print out. You cannot print more money to solve this. Anyways, going to leave it at that. That's not necessarily the best way I wanted to spend my Sunday, but I felt like I needed to say the message anyway. Thank you so much again for your time and attention. This has been Crucible Tarot. If you like what you see here, again, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, ding the notification bell. Support the channel in the best way that you see fit. And much love to you all. Until next time, VIAM, GEVURAH, AMBULO. Bye now.